Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Sunday the 17th of January 2021. And we're publishing really an ad hoc or one-off video on social inequality and how about 20% of Americans have prospered under the coronavirus pandemic, while up to 80% have become significantly worse off. And we also briefly touch on perhaps to some extent this is why we have not seen the dramatic rise in gold and especially silver prices that many had anticipated. So let's take a look. Now firstly, just a quick shout out to a video we produced earlier today entitled Bitcoin versus Gold and Silver, which is episode 7 in our Bitcoin series, with the added title Price to Soar or Collapse, where we discuss two opposing views as to whether we're likely to see $100,000 or even $1 million Bitcoin, or whether it's going to collapse into complete insignificance. And also yesterday we produced our normal weekly gold and silver update, and we've provided links to both of these below. Now this video is a little unusual simply because it's primarily an article published by Bloomberg. It's around 9 minutes long, so it is quite lengthy, and we apologise for that. The essence, though, is that the stimulus given so far by the United States government, plus low mortgage rates, and the inability of people well off enough normally to go to restaurants and eat out, now being prevented from doing so due to lockdowns, has meant that the top 20% have not only been able to sustain their income by working from home, but have managed to cut their expenses, plus their mortgage costs, leaving them far better off than even before the pandemic began. Add to this the rise in both stocks and bonds, and frankly, at least for now, the white-collar workers earning over $60,000 a year have really never had it so good, at least financially. Also, we're often asked, why haven't the public caused what David Morgan likes to call the blow-off top in silver prices to occur? Well, the fact remains, at least so far, because most Americans cannot afford to do so, that is, buy silver, and in a number of cases even afford to eat, and those that can and perhaps have surplus monies available have tended to focus them more on risk-type assets, such as equities and even Bitcoin, as opposed to the traditional gold and silver that previously they would have been attracted to. That said, though, we have seen positive movement in the price of gold and in the price of silver, but more so the former. Now, of course, this momentum will eventually change, but the question, as always, is when, though we suspect not in the immediate future. So let's listen to the article, and please let us know your thoughts and whether you agree or disagree with the author. And of course, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so, not forgetting to press the bell sign so you're notified of our videos as and when they are published. Bloomberg article dated January 17th, 2021. Headline: Pandemic like never before. Americans have become, by some measures, richer during the pandemic than ever before. It's a difficult thing to fathom, what with the economic collapse and the surge in the ranks of the jobless, the homeless, and the hungry. But there's a whole class of people, at least the top 20% or so of earners, who've had to worry little about such matters. For them, not only has it been relatively easy to carry out their white-collar jobs from home, but the Federal Reserve's unprecedented emergency measures, including slashing benchmark rates to zero, have padded their wallets too. They've refinanced their mortgages at record low rates, purchased second homes to get away from cities, and watched the value of the stocks and bonds in their investment accounts surge. Their massive wealth accumulation is, in large part, obscuring the toll felt by all those who don't enjoy the same easy access to credit or financial markets. As household net worths surged to a fresh record, hundreds of thousands of businesses are estimated to have permanently shut. Over 10 million Americans remain jobless, and nearly 3 times as many are going hungry at night. Even as a new Democratic administration plans to seek trillions of dollars of additional spending to supplement last month's COVID-19 relief package, economists warn of dire social and political consequences from the dramatic widening in the gap between Americans' haves and have-nots. With income inequality already near the highest in at least half a century, the country's response to the financial devastation wrought by the coronavirus raises questions about who emergency measures were designed to help and who was left behind, they say. There has probably not been a better time to be wealthy in America than today, said Peter Atwater, an adjunct professor at William & Mary, who popularized the notion of a K-shaped recovery to describe the stark split in economic fortunes. So much of what policymakers did was to enable those that were wealthiest to rebound fastest from the pandemic. Over the past 10 months, higher income earners have, relatively speaking, had it pretty good. Employment for the top quartile of workers, those earning over $60,000 a year, has already recovered above levels from a year ago, according to data from Opportunity Insights, a non-partisan research institute based at Harvard University. And as lockdowns gripped the nation, millions of people, especially those at the upper end of America's socio-economic ladder, were able to redirect money they would have otherwise spent on things like entertainment, dining and travel towards savings or, better yet, investments. For many it has paid off handsomely. Thanks to the Fed's efforts to prop up the economy, US stocks have surged to record highs in the aftermath of the outbreak, while bonds last year rallied the most in over a decade. If your wealth is captured by financial assets, you are back up and running in no time, said Amanda Fisher, Policy Director at the Washington Center for Equitable Growth. It's the lowest income folks who don't even have to file taxes that have the highest barrier to climb. As their investment accounts ballooned, well-off Americans got another gift. Mortgage rates, driven largely by the same forces that sent stocks soaring to dizzying heights, plunged to the lowest on record. Homeowners, especially those with pristine credit scores, have been taking advantage. Refinancings have accelerated to the fastest in nearly 2 decades, according to data from Fannie Mae, allowing millions of borrowers to cut their monthly payments. For those at the other end of the spectrum, things are very different. Employment for the bottom quartile of American earners, those making less than $27,000 a year, remains more than 20% below January 2020 levels. Last month, nearly 30 million adults lived in households where there wasn't enough to eat, according to the US Census Bureau's Household Pulse survey, up 28% since the pandemic. In Louisiana, the worst affected state, 1 out of every 5 people now faces food scarcity, the survey shows, with the numbers being even more dire among black Americans. Millions are busy figuring out how to keep their homes rather than borrowing against them. Over a third of US adults who live in households that have fallen behind on rent or mortgage payments are likely to face eviction or foreclosure over the next 2 months, according to the December Census Bureau survey. As the rollout of the first COVID-19 vaccines instills more optimism in financial markets, many borrowers struggling with debt are finding it harder than ever to see a path to recovery, even after the additional relief measures approved by Congress in December. People simply feel that they're nearing or at rock bottom, said Bradford Boats, a principal at bankruptcy law firm Bond & Boats in Birmingham, Alabama. We're hearing a lot more hopelessness. Boats said that for many of the people his firm has advised across Alabama, Tennessee and Mississippi, government unemployment benefits and stimulus checks simply haven't cut it. That money was used by people just to get by, he said, the additional stimulus has not been sufficient to make any type of difference for average Americans. To be clear, the fiscal packages passed by Washington have been among the biggest the country's ever seen, and in large part have targeted the nation's most needy. In coordination with monetary stimulus, they've undoubtedly helped scores of Americans remain employed and put food on the table. Still, the widening economic inequality that's accompanied those efforts illustrates the limitations of the response, according to critics. By easing credit conditions via the Fed, lawmakers were able to quickly prop up large corporations and wealthier individuals. But distributing aid to smaller firms and low-income workers has turned out to be a lot more challenging. Delays in the delivery of assistance, as well as confusion around rules and eligibility criteria, hindered many of those programs. Of course, it's no accident that the machinery of monetary policy works smoothly, while the fiscal equivalent sputtered. It's seen more regular use. For roughly 4 decades, US governments have largely delegated management of the business cycle to an independent Fed, in line with economic orthodoxies of the time, but now coming under increased scrutiny. Fiscal policy, better suited to regulating how the pie gets shared out, fell out of fashion except as a crisis tool. And over that same period, inequality steadily widened. According to Fisher, the pandemic has shown how the infrastructure the US government could use to reach everyday Americans is broken and in dire need of reform. Congress did a pretty good job of getting money to people, but we didn't manage to fix decades of rusted plumbing, she said. The fact that the Fed has infrastructure to do a bond buying program, but not to do anything else, is a choice, not an inevitability. For their part, officials from the Fed have regularly acknowledged that monetary stimulus is far from a panacea, and that the central bank has only limited tools to target specific economic outcomes. The Fed cannot grant money to particular beneficiaries, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell told reporters during a December 16th press conference. Elected officials have the power to tax and spend, and to make decisions about where we as a society should direct our collective resources. A spokesperson for the central bank declined to provide further comment. When it comes to fiscal policy, many economists argue that failure to act on another large round of stimulus could delay the economic recovery, just as vaccines are rolled out to the general public. Millions of people will see their unemployment benefits expire in mid-March if the measures approved by Congress in December are not extended. States and local government, meanwhile, could be forced to further cut their already strained budgets to make up for losses in tax revenue. Without more aid, they will have to make more cuts and cut services that will disproportionately affect lower-income families and communities, said Heidi Shierholz, who served as chief economist for the Labour Department during the Obama administration and is now at the Economic Policy Institute. She said comprehensive aid for state and local governments and additional benefits for the unemployed should be the priority in the next round of measures. Economists such as Atwater are also sounding the alarm over longer-term consequences of widening income inequality, which has been associated with lower economic growth, high crime rates and increased social unrest. You cannot have a sustainable economy and political system where you have a small population who believe they are invincible and a growing population who feel defeated, he said. It's in capitalism's best interest to close this gap. End of article. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer: Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.